It'd be nice if they studied the effect of economic barriers to other markets and what that means for American manufacturing. Joining me now to discuss the tariff deadline approaching and the launch of a new website, the Tariff Report, is the president of the National Taxpayers Union, Pete Sepp. Okay, so what is this new tariff report?
This is an attempt on our part to catalog some of the experiences of small businesses on the ground with tariffs. And it is intended to show that, well, tariff policy from the Trump administration and trade policy more broadly does have an impact on our economy. And hopefully, we're going to keep working toward the America First trade policy Trump originally articulated, which is zero tariffs, zero trade barriers, and zero types of retaliatory measures, so that we are having a free trade system that's working across all areas of the economy, that respects America and does business with other countries. I think we are headed in that direction better than we were back in March and April. The next big test, and it's probably the one Powell is mentioning kind of obliquely here, is July 9th, which was the date of pause of the Liberation Day tariffs. That'll be a decision point for the administration. Are they going to raise them again? They're going to keep them where they are? Are they going to retaliate against countries that haven't signed agreements with us yet? Who knows? But I think as long as the administration keeps going with the negotiations, markets and even the Fed are going to react positively. My advice to the president would be, don't give Powell the excuse to keep from lowering interest rates. Make an announcement as soon as possible.
Here's what I don't like. When Trump proposes a tariff, right? He's trying to goad the other nation into coming to the table and bringing down their tariffs. So if he says, maybe this is not the right time, or I'm going to move this back, or I'm going to move it over here, they go, Trump always chickens out. So first they say, don't do it. Right? And then if he doesn't do it, they lambaste him for doing it. And now the Democrats want to pretend they're not the party of tariffs. Again, everything you just said, we know what is happening here. Trump is trying to get better trade deals. And if people are going to shake their fists to him, can you tell us what your plan was? What was Kamala Harris's plan to get better trade deals? She couldn't tell us. We asked her, not me, but other members of the people who were interviewing her. Joe Biden never told us what his plan was to get a better trade deal. He would just say, we're the United States and we can do anything. He thought the way to create jobs and growth was to have more government subsidies at taxpayer expense.
That's right. And talk about an inflationary pressure. The government spending of that administration and Congress did a horrible job on the economy. And that's kind of the other part of this picture, right? If the one big beautiful bill also sends signals that we're finally going to start pulling back a little on the rampant licentious spending that's been going on year after year, that's going to also show Chair Powell that things are moving in the right direction. But tariffsreport.com is our website where we're kind of creating these reminders to keep pushing forward on these negotiated solutions. Otherwise, this is all going to be for naught, the pain that we're going through. And there is some real pain out there from the current tariff policy.
I've pointed out on this program, my radio program, that if you're encouraging foreign investment, right, if you have a Midwestern town that no longer has a plant that was the anchor of the community, and in comes a semiconductor plant, well, you want interest rates low because you want small businesses to spring up around that plant. That's how a town works, a community. If you have an anchor like a automobile plant or a steel plant, then people start small businesses to support that community, like restaurants, grocery stores, gas stations, whatever it is. But they need capital to get going. And if interest rates are high, it's going to be harder for businesses to spring up around these communities and create even more growth.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And federal spending and taxes have a lot to do with that, too. Overspending and large deficits and debt crowd out credit in the private sector. And if small businesses have less money in their pockets, if the tax relief that was granted through the 2017 bill evaporates, the small business tax deduction, corporate expensing for plants and equipment, R&D, if those things aren't extended, well, we're going to be in trouble on both ends. Bad interest rates and less money for small businesses to expand.
It feels like the Democrats are rooting against Trump's policies here because if everything is working well, right? Look, nobody said this wasn't going to be shaky, okay? We had 4 years of hot inflation. We've had this border crisis. We had a president that was clearly in decline. He was taken off the ticket. We had somebody put at the top of the ticket without any votes to confirm that. And when she would give interviews, she wouldn't tell the voter what her plan was. Kamala Harris didn't lose the race because she's a woman of color. She lost the race because she couldn't outline what her plan was, right? That was the problem. I'm not a Democrat voter, but if I was, I'd be asking the legitimate question. So what are you going to do, right? If what are you going to do different than, how are you going to carry us forward? When you can't answer that, voters don't trust you.
Right. And she could have very easily cleared that up by simply articulating a policy. A libertarian type reporter, someone like you,
now, that was not
and said, hey, okay, you don't like tariffs. I'm not too fond of them either, but what's your plan? And it's, well, higher taxes and more spending. Hey, but doesn't that make inflation just as bad as tariffs do? I mean, it's nonsensical.
Well, unfortunately, our government-run education system does not prepare a lot of young people to understand this stuff. I'm not saying they have to show endless reels of Milton Friedman. That would be nice. But it doesn't seem like that's a part of the learning process here, right? That if more kids were learning the truth about economics, I think we'd be a more literate society when it comes to what Democrats and Republicans are offering. I'll give you the last 10 seconds.
Well, you can learn a lot more about this trade policy at our new website. That's tariffs, plural, -report.com.
All right. You have a great weekend. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.